I didn't even know his name the first time he touched me. He couldn't ask for permission in my language, but my body gave it anyway. And in the silence between us, I found something I'd been missing my whole life. I didn't come here to fall in love. Honestly, I wasn't even sure why I came at all. Maybe it was to get away from the ruins of a marriage that had grown too quiet. Maybe it was to prove to myself that I could be someone without a man translating the world for me. I'm 39. And until recently, I had always been someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's interpreter for what they couldn't say out loud. But then I arrived in Lisbon. Alone. No one to ask what I wanted for dinner. No one to suggest I smile more. I remember the first time I saw him. He was standing near the tram stop, wearing a worn white t-shirt, sweat lining the collar. His skin was sun-warmed bronze, and his eyes, they didn't just look at me. They paused there, like they were waiting. He said something. I didn't understand it. I just smiled awkwardly and kept walking. But my body didn't move the same after that. My heart stuttered in a way it hadn't in years. And my legs, they carried me past him, but slow. Like they were hoping he'd follow. He didn't. Not that day. But I saw him again. And again. He worked nearby, I think. Sometimes sweeping. Sometimes just sitting. Always watching, but not in that invasive, leering way. No, his eyes asked nothing. They just received. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to explain myself. It sounds foolish now. Falling for a stranger who couldn't even ask my name properly. But there was something about the way he looked at me. The way his silence didn't scare me. The way, even without a single word between us, I felt completely seen. The next time I saw him, I was sitting alone outside a little cafe tucked between yellow walls and ivy-covered balconies. I was halfway through my espresso, pretending to read a book I didn't care about, when I looked up and there he was. He smiled. Not wide, not arrogant. Just warm. Familiar. He pointed to the chair across from me. Tilted his head, waiting. I should have said no. I should have been polite, protective, reserved, the way I'd always been taught. But something about him made that armor feel unnecessary. So I nodded. He sat down without a word. No awkward introduction. No small talk. He simply placed a paper bag on the table and gently nudged it toward me. Inside was a small pastry. Flaky, golden, still warm. Pastel de nata. He pointed to it, then to himself. Then to me. His eyes lit up as he made a motion like eating, grinning slightly. Was he offering it to me? Or showing me his favorite? I laughed softly, nodding. Obrigada, I said. Thank you. It was one of the only Portuguese words I'd learned. His face softened. He said something back, but I didn't catch it. Still, the way he looked at me as I took that first bite, it was like he was proud. We sat there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city, trading smiles and gestures like old friends without shared language. He pointed at things. I mimicked the words. He corrected gently, with laughter in his eyes. And when I said something wrong, really wrong, he touched his chest and shook his head, repeating the words slower, warmer. Teaching me, not teasing me. There was a kind of intimacy in it. In learning without fear. In not having to perform, or impress, or over-explain. He pointed. I followed. And somehow, I didn't feel lost at all. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was restless or uncomfortable, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smile. I replayed the way his fingers brushed mine when he handed me that pastry. Light. Careful. Like he knew my skin would remember it. The next day, I saw him again. Same cafe, same quiet seat across from mine. He brought coffee this time. 2 cups. He didn't ask how I took it. He just placed one in front of me, like he already knew. He pointed toward the ocean. Then at me. Then at himself. I hesitated. Was he asking me to go somewhere with him? His eyes searched mine, not pressuring, not desperate, just open. Offering. I nodded before my mouth could catch up to my mind. We walked in silence, our footsteps falling into rhythm. Lisbon streets wound around us like a maze, but I didn't care where we were going. I watched how he moved, how he paused to help an old man with a dropped cane, how he tilted his head at birds nesting near the rooftops, how he laughed at nothing at all. At the overlook, the sun was melting into the water. We stood side by side, saying nothing, until he turned to me, gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and left his hand there. I should have pulled away. I didn't. Instead, I leaned into it. Into him. Into the warmth of his palm, the softness of his gaze, the quiet way he asked for permission without a word. And then, his lips brushed mine. Not urgent. Not aggressive. Just a question. And I answered with a kiss. I didn't know his last name. I didn't know where this would go. But in that moment, my body made the decision for me. It didn't need translation. It only needed him. I tried to explain it to Elise the next day. She was back in New York, my oldest friend, always practical, always skeptical. We FaceTimed, and as soon as she saw my face flushed, softer than usual, she raised an eyebrow. You're glowing. Who is he? I laughed, but the words caught in my throat. What was I supposed to say? He doesn't speak English, I started. And I barely speak Portuguese. But I don't know, Elise. It's like, he hears me anyway. She frowned. Hears you how? You don't even understand each other. I didn't respond right away. Because how do you explain that someone's silence can feel more honest than 1,000 conversations? That his hands say more when they cradle your face than any poem ever could? Elise rolled her eyes. It sounds like a vacation fling. But it wasn't. At least, it didn't feel like one. He didn't just want my body. He paid attention. To the way I hesitated before ordering, the way I touched my collar when I was nervous, the way I looked at the ocean like it held answers I couldn't speak. And when he touched me, God, there was something reverent in it. Not hurried. Not entitled. Just present. But no, I couldn't tell Elise that. Because all I had were fragments. Moments. Glances. And none of them translated well. So I just smiled and said, it's not like that. But it was. It was exactly like that. Later that night, I saw him again. He didn't knock. Just waited outside the cafe, the way he always did. When I walked up, he didn't kiss me. He simply took my hand and started walking. I followed. Again. And I realized something, this wasn't about language. This was about knowing. And maybe the people who talked the most often heard the least. He never once said my name. Not because he didn't want to. He tried, once, I remember it. We were sitting near the docks, legs dangling over the edge as fishermen packed up for the day. He looked at me with a furrowed brow, like he was working something out in his head. He opened his mouth, hesitated, then said something that sounded like, Elena, my name, but softer, wrong, yet strangely sweet. I smiled. Close enough, I whispered, brushing my fingers over his knuckles. But here's the thing, he didn't need to say my name. Somehow, he still knew me. He knew when I needed space. When the world felt too loud and I didn't want to talk. He'd just sit beside me, silent, shoulder brushing mine, like that quiet contact was its own language. He noticed little things. How I always ordered too much wine, how I took photos of shadows instead of landmarks, how I wrote in my journal with too much pressure when I was upset. He never asked me why I left home. Or why I sometimes cried for no reason while looking at the sea. He didn't need the answers. He saw the emotion and met it without trying to fix it. Back home, men always needed words. Explanations. Logic. They'd ask what was wrong, and when I said nothing, they'd either get frustrated or walk away. But not him. He'd press his forehead to mine and just wait. As if saying, I don't need the why, I just need to be here with you. I used to think love required deep conversation. That someone had to understand every thought I ever had to really hold me. But he proved me wrong. Because every time his fingers found mine, or his eyes caught me mid-thought, I realized this man, whose language I didn't speak, knew my heart better than anyone who ever spoke it fluently. He started learning English. Just a few words, here and there. At first, it made me smile, how he'd point at things, waiting for me to name them. Window, he'd repeat. Coffee. Rain. Always with that determined glint in his eye, like mastering my language meant understanding me more. But the more he spoke, the more something in me hesitated. Because the silence had become our sanctuary. The space where I didn't have to explain myself or defend my feelings or fear being misunderstood. His lack of words had protected me from myself, mostly. From having to say too much. Now, with every new phrase he learned, I felt more exposed. More real. One night, he looked at me after we made love, his fingers still brushing circles along my thigh. He whispered slowly, "You feel sad sometimes." I froze. Not because he was wrong, but because he was right. And now, there it was spoken aloud. No hiding behind touch. No pretending he couldn't see through me. I nodded, barely. He reached up and traced my cheek with the back of his hand. "But strong," he added. "Still beautiful." Tears slipped out before I could stop them. I didn't want to ruin it with words. I didn't want to tell him about my ex-husband's emotional absence, or the miscarriage I never processed, or the way I sometimes felt like a ghost even when someone was holding me. He didn't need to know all of that. Did he? But maybe he already did. Maybe he always had. And maybe that was what scared me the most, not that he was learning my language, but that he was already fluent in the one I'd never let anyone else read. The one written across my skin, in silence. It's been 4 months since I left Lisbon. I came back because life doesn't pause for falling in love, not even the quiet kind. My visa expired, the rent here needed paying again, and my mother's health had started slipping. Reality whispered me home. But I still think about him, every day. We text now. The messages are clumsy, filled with broken grammar and heart emojis. He sends me photos of his meals, of the sunrise from our old cafe table. I send back videos of my morning walks in the city, pretending the noise doesn't drown me sometimes. I miss the way he touched me like I wasn't broken. Like he didn't need my full story to believe I deserved to be held. I miss the simplicity of us, not because we had no words, but because we didn't need them. There's a different kind of intimacy in silence. A deeper trust. When he calls me now, we don't say much. He says my name better these days. Elena. Clear. Confident. But he still pauses after saying it. Like it's sacred. And when we run out of things to say, he just looks into the camera and smiles. I always cry after we hang up. Not because I'm heartbroken, but because I was seen. For real. Maybe for the first time in my life. People ask if we'll see each other again. I don't know. But I know this. No matter how many miles stretch between us, I carry him. The man who never spoke my language but read my heart like it was written on his hands. He didn't fix me. He didn't try to. He just stayed close enough for me to remember that I was still alive. Still worthy of tenderness. And even now, across oceans and time zones, when the world feels too cold or too loud, he still reaches for me. Even if it's just through a screen. I still reach back.